Hello, folks. Devin Palou here, Ratio Christi Chapter Director at Winthrop University. And if you guys tuned in at all earlier, you got to see Clinton Wilcox doing a talk called Why Christians Need to Be Amateur Pro-Life Philosophers. Why pro-life needs philosophy. And it's been a busy week for us. I picked up Clinton Tuesday from the airport, and he has spoke 5 times in the last 4 days. He goes home on Sunday, and man, it's been a real busy week. But I'm here at my good friend Josh Erlien's house, and Josh is a chapter director with Ratio Christi at UNCC, and just wanted to kind of introduce. A lot of people know him. He's a more popular guy than I am, but maybe some of my friends and that don't know him, and thought it would be good to bring him on and just let you folks get to know him. So, Josh, tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you become a Christian? How did you get involved with RC? Where are you from? Kind of etc.
Well, that's an open-ended question. I can go anywhere with that. So I grew up in a believing home, but I was not myself a believer. I was that. This is in the '80s now. Remember, I had a mullet, leather jacket. I was that party kid. I had a criminal record. I was lost. Senior year in high school, God radically saves me, turns my life around. Night and day difference. But I wasn't asking questions like, does God exist? Is he real? Because, he radically saved me, and I just never really doubted that. But then I was exposed to some creation science videos by the guy who later became my father-in-law. And that did something to me. Even though I wasn't asking the questions, I wasn't wondering, hey, does this message hold up? But to see that it was not only good, but it was also true objectively, whatever I felt about it, that changed the way that I think about, or the way that I thought about my faith. I became much more confident. Like, hey, I could commend this message to somebody and not worry what might they ask, what might they say. And then I had some mentors, one in particular that really helped me to cultivate a love for the truth. He was one of these guys that the Mormons came to his door and he would say, yeah, I don't think you guys have anything for me, but you know what? I love the truth, so I'm going to listen with both ears. And, to a young believer, that was actually a little bit frightening to me. But he was so confident in the Christian message and even if it wasn't true, he really did want to know. And he would come out of those experiences much more convinced that Christianity indeed was true and was a message that he could commend to anybody. And so that's really that really shaped my early Christian life. And I see it as kind of part of the trajectory that got us to where we are here with Ratio Christi, though I didn't know it at the time. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about how did you get involved with Ratio Christi?
Purely by accident. Providence, whatever you want to call it. So I knew some of the leaders in Ratio Christi early on, Blake Anderson, Simon Brace, and I remember having a conversation. I was over at Blake's house, and I had seen that Ratio Christi was advertising, we want chapter directors, and I just happened to mention to Blake, do you think I would make a good chapter director? Do you think I'd be a good fit there? And he said, Josh, you're exactly what we're looking for. Well, that was a bit more than I was expecting, and long story shortened, the then president, Rick Schenker, started putting pressure on me. Josh, we need a chapter director at UNC Charlotte. And I'm thinking, I don't want to work with youth. And on a college campus? That's crazy. They're going to be like, I'm just me. They're going to ask these questions I don't even understand what they're saying. I'm going to get peppered with all these really tough questions and everything like that. I was pretty sure that it wasn't what I was cut out to do, but I thought I better at least go and check. So I visited one of the meetings. The group was already already somewhat established, but they didn't have a chapter director currently, and and I mean, it's kind of funny how it happened, but the second meeting I was there, it's supposed to start at 7. We're like 7:15. There's still like pockets of people standing around talking, and like nobody's starting the meeting. It's like not going anywhere. And I'm one of these guys that gets stressed out in a leadership vacuum. And so I just thought nobody else is doing anything. So I just stood up, grabbed my chair, went to the front, sat down. I said, "Hey, I got a question for you guys." And I said, "What do you guys think of this?" And we started with some questions, about God's existence. How do we know things, are true? How do we know the scriptures are reliable? I mean, those types of questions. I forget the exact questions. But we had a great time. And from then on, the students started looking to me to lead. And so I felt like, well, I guess maybe God's just kind of dropped this in my lap. Maybe I should do something like be faithful with it. And so here I am, like 6 years later, 7 years maybe. I think we're coming up on 7 years. And it's been a phenomenal ride. There have been a lot of questions, but we've really seen the Lord just put the right resources and give us wisdom when we needed it. And we've seen some beautiful things happening in the lives of students. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I say, was been able to be here tonight and just kind of hang out with some of the students, and it's been phenomenal to watch how just amazing the questions that they ask, and that they really do study these issues. They're talking about Thomas Aquinas and double effect reasoning and natural law, and you can tell that you've done a good job, having these students think and really even familiar with the issues. A lot of the students aren't even really familiar with the issues. So glad to have you at RC UNCC. What are you guys studying this semester? And do you guys have any events going on, or?
Yeah, okay, that's a little embarrassing. Usually we have a theme for the semester, so we'll like in the past we had one. We really enjoyed this one. It was I would believe the Bible, but ... And then one week it was I would believe the Bible, but aren't Christians hypocrites? And then we had a meeting addressing that topic. I believe the Bible, but isn't the Bible full of errors or contradictions? And then we had a meeting on that. Doesn't the Bible promote racism, sexism, and homophobia? So we did an event on that. And so we usually have some kind of a guiding theme for the semester. And we're very heavy on student presentations. When I first started, I did all the talking. And I enjoyed it. I like to hear the sound of my voice, I guess. But one of the students said, I'd like to have a little bit more student involvement. And as soon as he said, I thought, yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, the last thing I want to do is be a surrogate instead of what they should be doing. And so having the students lead the meeting, having the students do the presentations. I still do presentations, I still teach, but moving more into a coaching role has been revolutionary for our students. I've seen them grow by leaps and bounds by having to prepare themselves. I work kind of in quality control. I do review presentations and try to make sure we're still on task. We're working towards commending Jesus Christ through winsome conversations, those types of things. But having the students give the presentations has really helped them to grow. Then I always get the last 5 minutes because I'm the chapter director. So this semester, getting back to the question, this semester we're still in transition. We finished up a series last semester on evolution and creation, or intelligent design, things like that. We had a couple of talks that bled over into this semester, and then next week we're having Richard G. Howe, Dr. Richard G. Howe. So anyone can come. We're meeting at 6:30 to 7:30 in the Student Union 263 at UNC Charlotte. It's a free event. Richard Howe is going to come and talk about religious pluralism, and that's going to be kind of the springboard for the student talks that we'll have after that. is we like to do our event to somehow correlate with what we've been talking about, or use it as a way to gain momentum in the talks. And Richard always does a fantastic job in engaging the students and making difficult ideas clear and things like that. So that's kind of where we are. So we're in transition, but we're working toward something dealing with religious pluralism for the remaining weeks of the semester.
Okay. What would you say, Josh, what would you say is some of the challenges intellectually, kind of that's, some of our focus at Ratio Christi. What would you say some of the challenges are now that maybe parents watching this didn't face when they were younger? And what are some ways we can kind of shore up some of those weaker areas?
Yeah, so that's a big question. There are voices that have gotten into your students' heads, and it's not just the students; it's the parents too, that are really shaping the way that they think about the world and everything else. These are really worldview issues, and it's a worldview that makes Christianity, or let me say it differently, it hangs your Christianity in a vacuum. So I've had believing students, who are actively sharing their faith with others, that believe the gospel, that that pray and read their Bibles, and then I ask them, what does it mean to be human? And they say, well, humanity is just a name that we place on a particular arrangement of atoms. Okay, well, that's not the Christian worldview. Okay, that's a materialist reductionism. So that's one of the ideas that is shaping this generation of college students, is this assumed materialism, which is antithetical to a Christian worldview. Now, can you be a Christian and believe in reductionism like that? Well, yeah, you can believe the gospel, but it's in a vacuum. You've got what you have to pass on as far as a worldview is bankrupt. Okay, so there are ideas like that. Another idea, and I don't want this to sound like some kind of a Trump rally or something like that, but another idea that has captivated.
Apologetics great again.
That's right, exactly. One of the ideas that is really ruling the campus is Marxism. Karl Marx rules the university. I mean, there are students that will, without embarrassment, tell me that they're Marxist. Marxism is an absolutely anti-Christian philosophy. It's most times, I think I've met a few that haven't, but most times it's rooted in a materialist view of the universe. It sees everything as class struggle, but it's an idea, without going too far into it, it's an idea that has captivated today's students and makes for a caustic environment for your faith. So another one of the ideas, intellectual ideas, is what I'm not quite sure what to call it, but once I tell you what it is, you'll say, oh yeah, I've seen that. You might call it moral emotivism, or you might call it sentimental moral objectivism. So I wanted to kind of get a handle on how is it that our students are making moral choices today. Not what do they think is moral, but what's the framework they're using. Right. So I started asking students questions, and I was expecting to find some type of a, kind of a live and let live, relativistic, your truth, my truth, that type of thing, let's all get along type of mentality, right? I mean, because you think on college campuses, isn't that what everybody's saying? Just do what you want and, live and let live. Well, that's not what I'm finding, okay? So I thought maybe it's just the way that I'm asking the questions. Maybe I'm, because there's a way you can ask the questions where moral objectivism just rises to the surface, is obvious. So I wasn't quite sure what to do with that. I ended up having a conversation with the assistant director for gender and diversity at UNC Charlotte, and we were talking about gender dysphoria, gender identity, and things like that under a different context. And it was a very frank, very helpful conversation in a lot of ways. And so when we got to the end, I thought, I'm just going to ask him what he's finding, because he and I run in different circles. Most of the students that I meet are leaning toward the right politically, or at least to the right of left. Most of his students that he's meeting are far left of left. That's his description, far left of left. And so I told him exactly what I just told you. You know, I'm just not seeing relativism as really being a good way to describe how students are making moral decisions. And he absolutely agreed. He said, no, these are his words. No, they really do believe that it is objectively immoral that Donald Trump is president. Now, I think that he put his finger on something very, very important. It's we all agree that there are moral objectives, so there are objective moral values. That seems to be universal. That students think that there are some things that are right and some things that are wrong, but how they get there, that's what's so striking, and I think strikingly dangerous. Michael Brown, Dr. Michael Brown spoke at SES recently, and he and Frank Turek had kind of a debate with a couple other people. You remember the event?
Yeah.
Well, before the debate, Dr. Brown said, you know, a few decades ago, homosexuality was an issue. Now it's a person. And so he's put his finger exactly on this problem, that the way that we're evaluating the issues is we're evaluating persons. You know, I had a friend that changed his position on homosexuality, not because he got better data about what the Bible teaches or better data about what's good for humanity or anything like that, or does this promote human flourishing. No, it was because he met this guy named John. And John was a seminary student, but he struggled with homosexuality, and I mean, John's life is so tragic. I mean, his story reads like a Franz Kafka novel. You know, I mean, it's just like the meaninglessness of everything is overwhelming. So, for my friend, the question was less about the actions that John was doing with other men or to other men. The question was about John's personal experience. You know, what John feels and things like that. And so more and more our students are making moral judgments not based on behaviors but based on persons. That's why increasingly the LGBTQ movement is being identified as the new civil rights. You know, because just like it's wrong to discriminate against black people, it's also wrong to discriminate against LGBTQ persons, okay? But nobody wants to stand up and say, hey, wait a minute, there's no particular behavior attached to being, you know, white, black, yellow, pink, purple, whatever. But there is a particular behavior attached to being homosexual, okay? And every society evaluates behaviors. Mm-hmm. So to deny a society the right to even evaluate, whether you want to say it's right, wrong, or indifferent, to be able to evaluate that is essential for liberty. Yeah. And so, but this is then the framework that if we can't even know what sin is, okay, this creates a caustic environment for our Christian faith.
Good stuff, man. I appreciate that. You always add a lot of wisdom. Kind of, I guess, as we finish up here, how can people out there pray for you and your family and for the chapter at UNCC?
I would love it if people would pray that first that Nita and I would be holy, that we would walk with Jesus in a way that Jesus shows, and you know, no real change is going to happen in anybody's life except through Jesus and by the Word of God. And so, you know, pray that the Word of God would flourish in our ministry. That we would walk with Jesus in a way that's winsome and engaging and honest, and and pray that churches would gain a vision to mentor these students. There are so many students that just don't think church is valuable, and So there's a ministry. There's a mission field out there for churches.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for being with me, my friend. Thank
My
you.
pleasure.
I guess I'm with him because he opened up his house for for me to come to your house. So, thank you, folks. Really appreciate you guys all tuning in. I know it's been a lot. It's been several hours, probably 2 hours tonight. About an hour and a half yesterday, 2 hours Tuesday, and probably about six hours or so. Very good quality pro-life training with one of the best, Clinton Wilcox, with Life Training Institute. So,
He's fantastic.
isn't he good?
Yeah.
He is.
Yeah.
This issue matters. The issue of abortion matters. I know it's a hot topic, and I know that it can bring out a lot of emotions and a lot of anger and sometimes more heat than light. The goal of bringing someone like Clinton to the campus and to do these talks is to show how these conversations can be modeled. That it doesn't have to be yelling and screaming and personal attacks. That we can agree, to have a reasoned dialogue. Folks, you've seen me interview some of the students who've changed their mind on the issue of abortion. And, some of them are still, one of them is still not a Christian. He was an atheist, and he's kind of moved his position over to where he's more kind of agnostic now. But he moved his position to the pro-life view because he saw that there really were these kind of objective moral standards. Now, I don't want to, I'm not saying because the guy is, pro-life now, our job is over, because the goal ultimately is to lead people to Christ. But at the same time, you see that these issues do matter. You don't know if this guy's going to end up getting a girl pregnant down the road, or if he's got friends himself that are going to be, coming to him and asking him for help. We're called to defend life. We're called to speak up for life. So hopefully this has been something that's been beneficial for you guys. Visit us at Ratio Christi at Winthrop on our Facebook page. You get a lot of these videos. We live stream a lot of our events. You can go to our website, devinpalou.ratiochristi.org. You'll see our personal bio pages there, and would love to be able to speak at your church or home group or whatever the issue is. We do it for free, and speak the existence of God and some of these important issues, and even issues like pro-life. So thanks you guys for joining us, and keep praying for us, and we'll be back next time. God bless.